All right, so welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at Ellen DeGeneres.
Ooh.
We've got this biography here called Ellen DeGeneres, The Rise, Fall, and Lies of a TV Icon. And let me tell you, it is juicy. But
Yeah.
we're not just here for the gossip. We want to kind of understand how Ellen went from being America's sweetheart to, well, one of the most polarizing figures in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating kind of trajectory to look at. And it's really, I think, not just about her, but really about our relationship with celebrity and what we expect from celebrities, right? Like how that's changed over time.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. We know that. Ellen got her start doing stand-up back in the late 70s, hitting all those open mic nights. And the book really emphasizes how her early comedy was clean, relatable, all about, everyday life observations.
Which is interesting because that kind of every woman approach almost seems expected today. Right. But back then, stand-up comedy was very different. It was much edgier, sometimes offensive. So she kind of carved out this space for a different kind of humor.
Yeah.
And it obviously resonated.
And that led to her big breakout moment on the Johnny Carson show in '86.
Huge.
And remember back then, getting on Carson, that was like the holy grail.
It was the maker or breaker, right? Like appearing on Carson could make or break your career.
Absolutely.
And she nailed it. I mean, Showtime even called her the funniest person in America after that appearance.
Oh, wow.
And it just opened so many doors for her. And soon enough, she had her own sitcom, Ellen.
Right, and the sitcom was a hit. But then it gets really interesting, I think, with the puppy episode in '97, where Ellen's character comes out as gay and then Ellen herself comes out as gay.
Right, huge deal.
I mean, this was huge. TV was a totally different landscape back then.
You can't overstate the impact of that episode. 42 million people tuned in to watch that. That's unheard of today. And the episode won an Emmy, a Peabody Award.
Yeah.
It really became this cultural moment, but it was also incredibly risky for her at the time.
Because coming out in Hollywood in the late 90s, it was still taboo.
Extremely taboo. The backlash was intense. Sponsors pulled out. There were bomb threats, protests.
Wow.
Even Ellen's then-girlfriend, Anne Hesh, faced career setbacks just for being associated with her.
So what did that intense pressure do to her career? Because it's hard to imagine going through that kind of public scrutiny.
So her sitcom was canceled the following season.
Oh, wow.
It's impossible to say. If it was solely due to the controversy surrounding that episode, but the timing certainly suggests it played a role.
Yeah.
It seemed like she had risked everything and lost.
But she didn't disappear completely.
Right.
She had a few years later, she's back.
Yes.
And arguably even bigger than ever.
Exactly. And that's what makes her story so interesting, right? Like she goes through this period of kind of professional uncertainty.
Yeah.
And, she voiced Dory in Finding Nemo, which looking back is such a brilliant career move.
Right. It kept her in the public eye, but in this safer, more family-friendly way. And then in 2003, the Ellen DeGeneres Show premieres. And it was like nothing else on daytime TV, all the games, the dancing, the celebrity guests. It was pure escapism.
Right.
And it just took off. I mean, millions of viewers were tuning in every day. It really seemed like she had found her niche, this persona of the kind, relatable, fun-loving host.
Yeah, it was like a winning formula, right?
Yeah, but as we know, things eventually started to unravel. And I think the first sign of trouble, at least publicly, came during the 2007 Writers Guild strike.
Right.
Now, Ellen, a member of the Writers Guild herself, chose to keep filming her show.
And that generated a lot of controversy. People felt like she wasn't supporting her fellow writers.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, some writers from her old sitcom started speaking out about her behavior on set, suggesting she wasn't as kind behind the scenes as her public image might have portrayed.
And then there was that awkward interview with Mariah Carey in 2008, where it seemed like she was pressuring her to reveal her pregnancy.
Yeah.
That one didn't age well.
It didn't, especially considering what happened later. And I think, it highlighted this potential disconnect between her on-screen persona and maybe how she behaved off-screen.
Yeah.
And this was before the Be Kind mantra really took hold, but even then, it kind of raised questions about whether she was always as sensitive and empathetic as she appeared.
But even with these, early controversies, Ellen's career didn't really take a hit.
Right.
In fact, it's kind of like she entered this, you could call it her Be Kind era.
Yeah.
It felt like everywhere you looked, Ellen was preaching kindness, giving to charities, just generally being like this beacon of positivity.
Exactly. Throughout the 2010s, her brand became basically synonymous with kindness. Her show gave away millions of dollars to all sorts of causes, like,
Yeah.
supporting firefighters, helping college students pay tuition. The book actually estimates that the Ellen DeGeneres Show donated over $500 million during its run.
Wow, that's an incredible amount.
It is.
And it definitely solidified her image as this, like, generous, caring person.
Yeah.
But looking back, do you think there's a possibility that at least some of that philanthropy, the way it was presented on the show, was a little performative?
Yeah, I think it's a valid question, and it becomes particularly relevant when you consider the allegations that later surfaced about the work environment behind the scenes.
Because those accusations were pretty much the opposite of be kind, right?
Exactly. In 2020, a comedian named Kevin Porter sent out this tweet asking people to share their Ellen is mean stories.
Oh, I remember that.
It went totally viral. And then what followed was just this flood of anecdotes about her alleged bad behavior.
And some of those stories were just about her being, rude or dismissive.
Right.
But others were much more serious, like former employees started coming forward with these allegations of a toxic work environment.
Exactly.
On the show.
And it wasn't just like isolated incidents. There seemed to be these recurring patterns of alleged mistreatment, including discrimination, harassment, and bullying.
So what were some of the specific accusations that came out?
So one former employee, a black woman, talked about experiencing years of microaggressions on set, where colleagues would make racially insensitive comments and dismiss them as jokes. She talked about feeling isolated and afraid to speak up.
It's so disheartening to hear that, especially considering her platform and this message of inclusivity.
Right, and then there were also allegations of employees being penalized for taking medical leave. One person claimed they were fired after taking time off following a suicide attempt.
Oh my gosh.
Another said they were let go after taking leave to recover from a car accident and attend funerals.
It really seems like there was this huge disconnect between this be kind image that was being projected and what was allegedly happening behind the scenes.
Huge disconnect. And then, of course, there were the allegations against the show's 3 executive producers. And those were really disturbing.
You're talking about Kevin Lehman, Ed Glavin, and Jonathan Norman.
Yes, multiple former employees accused Lemon of sexual harassment and misconduct, describing inappropriate comments, unwanted advances, and even groping.
And Glavin was accused of being, handsy with female staff members, making them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, touching them inappropriately. It's this pattern of behavior that's sadly very common in these workplaces where, there are these uneven power dynamics.
Absolutely. And then Norman was accused of grooming a younger employee, taking them to concerts and events and then making unwanted advances.
Exactly. It's important to note that all 3 producers denied these allegations. But this sheer number of people coming forward with similar stories was really hard to ignore.
It just painted this very disturbing picture of what was going on behind the scenes of this seemingly, happy-go-lucky show.
Right. And Warner Bros., the studio behind the Ellen DeGeneres Show, they took notice. They launched an internal investigation bringing in this third-party firm to conduct interviews with current and former employees.
It's a really big deal. And it really put Ellen on the defensive.
She did release a statement saying she was, disappointed to learn about what had been happening and took responsibility for what happens at my show.
But did people buy it?
The reaction to that statement was mixed. Some people felt like it was a genuine apology. Others saw it as more damage control. And what made things even more complicated was that several celebrities, like Ashton Kutcher and Katy Perry, publicly defended Ellen, vouching for her character.
And Ellen's wife, Portia de Rossi, posted on social media saying, "I stand by Ellen."
Right. It felt very much like, Hollywood circling the wagons.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough to stop the growing wave of criticism.
Because other celebrities like Brad Garrett and Leah Remini actually came forward to say they had witnessed or heard about her bad behavior firsthand.
Yeah, and even Mariah Carey, recalling that awkward interview from 2008, kind of suggested there was more to this story than had been publicly revealed. It was really becoming clear that her carefully constructed image was cracking.
And the Warner Bros. Investigation, it had consequences.
It did.
All 3 executive producers, Levin, Glavin, and Norman, ended up leaving the show, which felt like a significant victory for those who had spoken out against them.
Absolutely.
Now, on the season 18 premiere, Ellen addresses the controversy directly, promises this new chapter for the show, but the damage was already done.
The ratings continued to drop. The magic was gone.
And in 2022, after 19 seasons, the Ellen DeGeneres Show comes to an end. Now, Ellen claims it's because the show was no longer creatively challenging, But I think a lot of people saw it as this inevitable consequence of this scandal.
Sure.
So the show ends, and Ellen's reputation is, well, tarnished, to say the least. What happens next? Does she just disappear from public life?
She tries to keep a low profile for a little while. There's this HBO documentary about her conservation work with gorillas.
Yeah.
That doesn't really generate much buzz. And then in 2024, she announces this stand-up comedy tour, her first in nearly 6 years, along with a Netflix special.
It really felt like a comeback attempt, a chance for her to kind of reclaim her narrative.
Yeah.
How did it go?
Not very well. The special, titled Relatable,
Yeah.
was widely panned by critics. They called it, out of touch, disingenuous, and just not fun.
It seemed like she was trying to address the controversy, but without really taking responsibility for her actions.
And there was this one joke that kind of stood out. She quipped about being kicked out of show business for being mean, which felt like this flippant dismissal of the very real harm that was done.
It's almost like she still didn't get it, like didn't grasp the gravity of the situation.
Yeah. And then to add another layer of weirdness, this old tweet of hers resurfaces.
Oh, no.
Remember when Diddy was arrested for those wild parties he was throwing?
Yeah, that was a whole thing.
Well, this 2016 tweet from Ellen pops up. It says, "Happy birthday, P, Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean," or as I call him, Cuddle MC Snuggle Stuff. You don't need to know why.
Okay, that's just bizarre and honestly kind of creepy.
Right. It led to speculation about Ellen's potential involvement in his activities, but there was never any evidence to suggest anything inappropriate. But the timing was very unfortunate.
And shortly after that Diddy tweet resurfaces, Ellen and Portia moved to the UK.
They claimed it was because of Trump's reelection. But many people speculated they were trying to escape the negative attention, or maybe even potential legal issues. It really felt like the final chapter in her downfall.
It's almost like a Greek tragedy, Yeah. This incredible rise, this champion of kindness, and then this very public fall from grace. What do you think this whole story says about our relationship with celebrity?
I think it's a fascinating question, and I think in a way, Ellen's story kind of reflects our evolving expectations of celebrities. Maybe years ago, we were a little more willing to separate the artist from the art, to turn a blind eye to those personal flaws, if the entertainment was good enough.
But that's not really the case anymore, is it?
No, not at all. Social media has really changed everything. We just have access to so much more information about celebrities' lives, their opinions, their behind-the-scenes behavior. And with that increased access comes, of course, increased scrutiny.
Right, so we hold them to a higher standard now, maybe even an impossible standard.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's because we feel like we know them, right? Like,
Yeah.
we invite them into our homes through our TV screens. We follow them on social media.
Right.
It creates this sense of intimacy, this illusion of friendship. And when that illusion is shattered, it can be really, really jarring.
Exactly. And I also think that Ellen's story highlights the danger of, building a brand around a single idealized characteristic like kindness, because human beings are complex. We're all flawed. And when you present yourself as being above those flaws, being somehow better than everyone else, it really sets you up for a hard fall.
And that fall can be even harder when it happens so publicly. The speed at which Ellen's reputation unraveled was stunning. It just shows you the power of social media to both build up and tear down.
Absolutely. And it raises these really interesting questions about forgiveness, about redemption. Can someone who's been accused of such egregious behavior ever truly regain the public's trust?
So what do you think? Is there a path back for Ellen? Can she rebuild her career and her reputation?
It's really hard to say. I think it would require a genuine commitment to change, to making amends. And it would involve a lot of listening, a lot of learning. It wouldn't be easy.
And it would also require the public's willingness to forgive.
Right, which is a whole other conversation.
It is, it is.
And it's a conversation I think we really need to be having,
Yeah.
Especially in this age of cancel culture where reputations can be destroyed in an instant. I think it's important to consider what role forgiveness and redemption should play.
Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive into the life and career of Ellen DeGeneres. It's a story that's both fascinating and cautionary, full of twists and turns, highs and lows, and it really leaves us with a lot to ponder.
A lot to think about, yeah.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the complexities of fame, fortune, and the human condition.
As always, subscribe to our channel, like the video, and comment below. There are also some links in our description that you may find useful. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.